let me introduce our speaker, Jennifer Cotney, which a good many of you know her. Jennifer Cotney is an award-winning poet and writer, the co-founder of Christian Mix 106, and the creator of the Inspirational Minute Radio Ministry. She is the host of the Weekend Free for All, a weekly program featuring new releases in Christian music. Since its inception in October 2020, the Weekend Free for All continues to be the Mix's top-rated weekly music program. She attended her first writing conference in 2019 with less than 1,000 followers on Twitter and barely 200 friends on Facebook. While the advice and training from the writing community works when building a network, Jennifer soon reached the same platform plateau many writers reach: how to grow an audience beyond the writer community. And she's going to tell us how today. Jennifer?
Thank you. Hi, everybody. A lot of you know me, and I just want to say thank you guys for coming, even though you already know what I'm going to say. I appreciate that. Everybody who doesn't know me, hi, I'm Jennifer, and I am a writer first. I also work in Christian media. All of the Christian media came about because I wanted to be a writer. And when I attended my very first writer conference, I was introduced to this concept of a platform. I did not have one. I was a special needs mom, stay at home for as many years as I had been an adult. So I didn't even know where to start to build this professional platform. I did go back to some of my college marketing tactics that I learned back in the day, and I applied them and they worked. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to tell you guys what I did to get to this position where I'm at right now. I did have an outline that I had going around. If you wanted to take notes, the very first section is unbury your confidence. The very first thing you need to remember is the blessing of obedience. You need to say yes. It doesn't matter how small the opportunity or how few people are actually going to see it. What matters is that you follow through. As a Christian and as a writer, what God is looking for from us is our obedience, our willingness to show up for Him and do the work. And we all know that you're not going to have anything published at all without a whole lot of work done on the way. I want to tell you about my very first writers conference. When I showed up, I was expecting, I don't know what I was expecting. I wasn't expecting that many people. I immediately on my very first day had an anxiety attack and I had to go into the bathroom because as I walked into the cafeteria, I realized that there were a couple of thousand people there and I had no idea where to start. We had appointments, we had scheduled appointments, and my very first appointment, they didn't even look at my writing. They didn't ask me about myself. The first question that was asked of me is, what are your numbers? Your numbers being your social media, your platform. What is your audience? And I didn't have one. I had some friends who saw some potential in me, and that was the whole reason I was there. I don't want to discourage anybody from attending a writer's conference because it was that very moment that literally everything changed. I went into it believing that I was going to find my tribe, that I was going to hear the voice of God. I was going to know exactly what my purpose was and what direction He was going to take me in. Did I want to do fiction? Did I want to do devotionals? Did I want to do nonfiction? I knew that that's where I was going to find my way. And it did not happen. And it was this 5-day conference. And by day 4, I stayed up all night crying. I was hearing the voice of the enemy and the defeat telling me, you don't belong here. You're not good enough. I packed my things up. And by 5 a.m., I was loading my car ready to go. As a matter of fact, I didn't even attend the last day session. And apparently that was a really good session. So I did miss out. I was so consumed by my own defeat that I was just ready to get in the car and go. But you know what's really funny is God has a way of getting to you even when you're running away. So at the time while I was packing up and I was getting ready to leave, my phone kept going off. It was just ding, 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 ding. Now, I was on Twitter at the time, I was on Facebook, and the reason why I was in so many tears is because I had 200 friends on Facebook and I had about 700 something followers on Twitter, which I was really proud of because I had just started Twitter a couple of months before. And the lady who I met with looked at she didn't even read my stuff. She actually threw it in the trash can next to us, told me to come back when I had 5,000 followers and friends on Facebook and a minimum of 10,000 followers on Twitter. Now I will let you know, it's been a few years and now they're asking for 50,000 combined across all your platforms. It sounds impossible, doesn't it? But we work for the God of the impossible. And even though I'm not there yet, it's the steps that we take along the way that set us up for what God has waiting for us. So I packed up and I left my conference and my phone was ding, 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 ding. And it was this random person on Twitter of all places messaging me my direct messages. And I don't talk to random people on Twitter. I don't respond to these direct messages, but I did look at the notification and it said, I'm praying for you. I'm worried about you. This stranger on Twitter had been overcome by the Holy Spirit with the urge to pray for me in that moment and would not stop attempting to contact me until I responded. And so I did. I stopped what I was doing just long enough to let them know I was okay. And he was a man. And again, another thing that I would never do is talk to a strange man on the internet. But he gave me his phone number and he said, if you need to talk, call me. And what I had said to him was, I'm okay. Everything's all right. I'm fine. Just having a bad day. And that was the response. If you need to talk, call me. By the time I got in the car and I got on the interstate and I was ready to get going, I was sobbing. I was not in a position to drive. I needed to pull over. My husband didn't want to hear me whine about how awful it went after I just spent $1,400 to go to this event. And I felt like I couldn't call mom or, the usual people that I would call. So I did. I called the stranger on the internet and I poured my heart out. And this person listened. And for 2 hours in the conversation, I ended up getting back on the road, putting him on speaker and continuing to drive, just pouring my heart out to a total stranger. And it was cathartic. It really was. But what I didn't know was this total stranger had some really good ideas on how to help me and would not let me give up. It started, I gave him, when I called him, he had my phone number. So he started texting me encouraging messages. I knew he was married. I knew his wife knew that he was talking to this woman on the internet. So I wasn't that worried about it. My husband knew as well. But these messages were truly encouraging. And he wasn't the only one. There were other people who would send me messages through social media saying, hey, I really like what you post. I really like what you share. I hope you keep going. I didn't know if this was some plan behind my back to build me up or whatever, but I just knew that God was in control. And I believed these people, that they really cared about what I had to say. So this person on the internet, his name happens to be Brian Tucker. And around the time that I had stepped out on faith and decided I wanted to be a writer and I'm going to go to these conferences, I'm going to invest in this, I'm going to learn this skill, and I'm going to do this. He quit his job in finance, where he had a really good job working for a bank. And this has been his life career. He felt the call to ministry. And as he was telling me what he was doing, he said, you in a way inspired me to step out in faith and go do what I feel God is calling me to do. So he had enrolled in at the time it was an associate's degree. He's now 3 classes away from finishing his bachelor's. But he enrolled in a class in an online program. Sorry. It's okay. It happens to all of us. And he ended up starting this path. He quit his job. He started devoting time to building his own social media, including Twitter. And he started this really awesome audio message program. And I would listen to it and I would listen to how talented this person is. He didn't write his stuff down. He would just speak from the heart, 90 seconds, 2 minutes, every single day, 5 days a week. And eventually started to get burned out on it. And he had built this audience. So he asked for people to step in and help him out. And I was one of the people he asked.
Shell to the counter, please.
When I first started doing these audio messages, at this point, I had maybe 900 followers on Twitter, and I would always post it on Twitter. I didn't post it on Facebook because over on Facebook, it didn't seem like people engaged as much with me as they did on Twitter. And on the podcast program that I was using, I would do one a week, and my messages, because I'm a wordy person, would go about 3 to 5 minutes. And I would only have maybe 4 or 5 clicks. And I could tell you who those clicks were because I could see my statistics. And I started to feel that defeat. Why am I doing this? I even had somebody who went to that conference reach out to me. And one of the things that was suggested was that I do a blog. I didn't want to do a blog. I didn't want to do the same thing everybody else is doing. Also, I'm not that interesting and I can't come up with enough things to say about myself in order to keep an audience engaged and coming back week after week. So a new blog wasn't for me, but what I was doing on Twitter was kind of an audio blog. And one of the people I'd gone to the conference with reached out to me and said, what are you doing that for? That's kind of a waste of time. You should be posting this on a website. You should be writing instead of speaking. And I didn't understand why I was doing it either, but her asking me that kind of fired me up. And I said, it's not really about how many people are listening. It's about that person who needed to hear it. And I got on my knees and I prayed and I said, God, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to build this platform. I don't know how to reach an audience, but I know you do. So I'm going to give it to you. I made my social media reflect my faith. Everything I did on social media from that point on was all glory to God, nothing about me. I didn't post anything about writing. I didn't share anything about speaking or showing up somewhere or anything. I didn't even talk about conferences that I was going to. Everything I did was for my faith, because if I was going to go anywhere at all, it's to serve Christ. That's the whole reason I was there. I was caught up with how to make myself more popular. And I forgot that my purpose here is spreading the gospel. So what we ended up doing, Brian threw me for a loop. I'd done maybe a dozen messages, and I had prayed this prayer, and I knew that God was in control. So when Brian decided one day out of the blue to delete his social media, and he had the 10,000 followers, delete it and stop doing the messages, I stepped in. I started calling them the inspirational minutes. I also tried to get a team of people to help me step up and do these, but nobody wanted to do it on Twitter, and nobody really saw the value in podcasting at the time. So isn't it funny how hindsight is 2020? But I kept doing it. And 6 months later, I was actually at another writers conference, and this one went much better. I had a lot more fun, and I'll tell you about that one at the end because I'd love for y'all to attend. A much more speed for somebody who's just getting started, but it's also really great for people who are already on their way and are looking for making connections and networking for that next step. We'll get to that. I'll give you a handout at the end with all that information. But somebody saw my messages on Twitter, and they happened to be the general manager for a radio station. And Brian was actually instrumental. Brian Tucker, that random stranger back in the day, he was instrumental in connecting me with this radio station. And the first station was WIAM, inspirational radio station out of Gloucester, New Jersey. As a matter of fact, served the greater Philadelphia area. And they started airing my inspirational minutes in September of 2019. Immediately, Brian had found 2 other ladies because he knew that this was a lot of pressure for me. So he found 2 other ladies. I connected with them. We had the same vision for what we wanted to do. And their names are Christine Howard and Jill Sharp. And we started this team. In November of 2019, we got our first international syndication with Praise Radio International in Canada, Alberta, Canada. And then from there, it just picked up. We had multiple stations asking to pick us up. We would do individual recordings every single week for all of these different stations. So my advice on this timeline, if we're going to go by the timeline, is when you start to submit to God first. Don't worry about submitting to editors until you submit to God, because he is going to take you where he wants you to go. And finally, get over it, because you're going to hear no. You're going to hear you're not ready, or this needs work. Very rarely are you going to hear that you're going to get a contract. And when you do, it's after a long time. What potential you have, it really is up to you to show it to them. But they're busy. You got 10 minutes, some cases 15, to pitch. You have an elevator pitch, 45 words, maybe 100 words if you have a little bit more time. And that's hard to do. It's hard to get their attention and keep their attention, even when you impress them. So all they care about right now is numbers, who you are. So let's talk about your platform. I'm going to give you 3 tricks to grow your social media as an unknown, no matter which platform you choose. I personally stick to Twitter. I find Twitter encouraging, and it was very helpful for me in my journey. Facebook is a lot more intimidating. It started off as a place where my friends and family were, but then it became a place where I have a lot of strangers there. I no longer feel comfortable sharing my personal life on that platform. But you guys may feel differently. So one of the things I would suggest is that you engage and respond to everything. If somebody posts something, I would stay away from the political stuff, especially right now. I would stay away from all of the hot button issues that you know are going to be a trigger. I'm talking about when somebody's asking for prayer requests, somebody needs some encouragement, somebody posts an encouraging meme. I would like it and I would make a comment. And don't keep score of who likes and responds back. Just put it out there. That's all you need to do. When you're over on Twitter, and I have a radio station page for Instagram, but somebody else runs it for me. I don't really mess with Instagram, but follow back everybody that follows you. Now you got to be careful because there are a lot of bots on there. There are a lot of computer programs that are fake profiles. What you would do is you would look at their profile. Don't be dismayed if they just started their Twitter page this month or last month, because everybody starts somewhere. What you want to see is, what do they post? Do they just retweet what somebody else is doing, or do they engage with other people? That's how you can tell a real person, is because they're actually engaging. You can look under the tweets and replies on their profile, and it'll show you what they're doing. So that's how you know it's a real person. Follow them back. If you want, like their posts, make a comment on something that they say, especially if it inspires you. Creative content. That's a real catchphrase, isn't it? And it really does sound easy, but it is. It's not that hard. One of the ways as a Christian that we can get our creative content out there is to post outside the box. It's the power of caring and sharing. It's offering to pray for others. That was one of the first things I had done on Twitter, was I just put it out there. Hey, I have some free time right now. I'd love to pray for you. How can I pray for you? At literally thousands of responses. It was a lot. Now, you have to be committed to responding. If you're going to put something out like that, pray for them. They're going to come in your DMs. Respond to that. Pray for them. They're going to post. Pray for them. They're going to retweet it, and they're going to share their prayer request. Comment on that retweet. You'll get every single one of those notifications over on Twitter. It works the exact same way over on Facebook. Now, it may take longer, won't be as instantaneous, and it may not be all 24 hours a day, but it works the same way. When you offer to pray for somebody else's need, they come. And what are you getting out of that? You're praying. You're praying for somebody else. That's automatically going to increase you no matter what, because you get extra time with God. So that is my first trick for creative content. Post a Bible verse daily. an encouraging word. You could take, a lot of people get inspired by scripture, and they'll take scripture, they'll put it into their own words, and they'll make a meme out of it. I'm not that technical. I just post the words. That works. I've already talked about engaging with others. I can't stress this enough. Engaging by commenting. Comment back when they comment to you. Comment on their posts. Show them that you care, that you're not a bot, and that you're somebody that you genuinely care about them. It works the same way in real life when we show up for our friends. It really does. There are 3 ways that you can promote yourself that worked for me before you have an audience. Just to let you know a little bit about myself, I started off with nothing. And the second thing I did after I went to a writers conference and started my Twitter and everything else, I actually came to a local writers meeting. And when I first walked in, Ingrid and Ray will tell you, I actually came for the poetry side because I love poetry. And my very first time coming in here and sharing a poem, which was my second or third meeting, I whispered the whole time. I was terrified. It was the first time sharing with anybody outside of my 4 walls, but it was also the first time that I read it to other people. So it was really difficult. You know, it's one thing to just send somebody something on the internet and have them read it and get back to you, but it's another thing to look at them when you're sharing. But it was one of those things that I felt the obedience, you know, I knew God was telling me to do this, show up. That is the first thing. Show up, no matter what. Attend every event possible. Somebody said to me at the time, say yes, no matter what it is. I said yes to secular events, and I went to secular events, and I got a lot out of those secular events. You know, it's amazing how much people will respect you when you walk in with your faith on your sleeve, and they see you for who you are, and they welcome you. It's really, really amazing. The smaller the event, the better. Don't look around the room and say, oh, there's only 4 people here. You have no idea who those 4 people are. It's a great way to connect. You can show your personality. You got to trust that God has placed the right people in your path at the right time. I was invited to sit in on a Zoom meeting at the very beginning of the pandemic. I barely knew how to get on Zoom. There were 5 people there. My first thought was, oh, what have I gotten myself into? And well, now I'm committed. I have to stay in this meeting. It turns out that one of the people in the meeting was the president of Christian Women in Media International. And she's also a movie producer. So I was able to get an hour in a very small group environment. It was a Zoom meeting. So it was in my bedroom, 6 people in the room. And we actually had this wonderful, engaging, amazing conversation. And I will talk about Christian Women in Media in just a minute and everything that they have done for me from there. But it's really important to show up no matter how small the event. And when you do walk in and you see them, just know that someone in this room is here for you, or you're there for them, one or the other. Speak up. Sign up to speak or to read. If you're asked to read a devotional, show up, speak, sign up, do all that. Volunteer whenever possible. It matters. It really matters. They remember the people who came and volunteered and helped. They always do. Stand up and introduce yourself. Don't be afraid to stick out your hand and shake hands, even after the pandemic. If you want to do an elbow bump, do an elbow bump. Show them who you are. Tell them your name. Give them your title if you have one. If you don't, say, I'm new. It matters. People will listen. Oh yeah, I wanted to tell you about the first time I was asked to speak about my radio station to a group of media professionals. I blanked. I walked in, they did this introduction. I stand up and I'm like, I'm a stay-at-home mom. I have no idea what I was doing. You know what? Same thing. They laughed. They were like, okay, great. And they listened to me talk about my kids and my husband. And they're like, but what about the radio station? Oh, yeah. Being new, use it to your advantage. that's another way you meet people and you make those connections and everything else. Just don't be afraid to let them know, I don't know. Do you? Maybe they do. Maybe they'll walk you through it. I don't know how much time I have left. It's 11:09. Okay. Well, I don't want to take too long because I do have another page to hand out at the end. The ways to connect with the media and build references. I'm going to tell you exactly what I did. Volunteer with your local Christian station here in New Orleans. That's Life Songs. Yes, absolutely love Life Songs. I can't say enough good things about this team. I actually was volunteering for them before I was a writer. Long time ago, back in my days before stay-at-home momhood, I worked in concert promotion. I also worked for a TV station. So I had a little bit of skill doing the setup and the breakdown for concerts and running spotlight and camera and stuff like that. So I had we had moved here. We were in a really hard place and I needed a part-time job. So I was trying to get my word out there with all of the local concerts and theater industry, trying to get some work. And every time, it's funny how God works these things out, because it was so him. Every single time something would come up, I would not be available. But then one day the phone rang and it was one of my friends who was actually in town, remembered I lived here. They were super shorthanded. They were doing a Christian show at the Sanger, and I probably never heard of the guy. I like Christian music. So I was like, well, who is it? And they said, this guy named Toby Mac. I said, I know who that is. Yes. So they asked me if I'd come. They said, but hey, being a Christian event, we can't pay you. Oh, and they said, but maybe we can get you a t-shirt and we can feed you. And I was like, okay. And you can see the show. I said, okay, that was worth it for me. I live in New Orleans, Sanger's not that far. Back then it was safer, much safer for me to go by myself and go to a show. So I showed up and they had me work the merchandise table. They did give me a t-shirt and a CD. I did get to see the show and they called me back. And, honestly, I went for the food because I was hungry, but they fed me. They called me back. And I knew when they called me back that this is not a paid event. This is a volunteer position. But it goes back to that being obedient and saying yes. I showed up and I continued to show up. And it took a few concerts, really didn't take that long, before I began to build a relationship with the Christian publicity and producers. When I started to build that relationship with them, they recognize you. Every time you come to New Orleans, they'll start texting you beforehand. We have a show. Are you available? I started to bring teams of people with me to volunteer because a lot of these are big name bands. I've worked with Big Daddy Weave and Mercy Me, and when Dan Bremnes released one of his songs, he chose Life Songs as his first radio station to premiere it on. And he had a special, introduction where he had everybody get together in the room and they played the song for us before it ever made it to the radio station. It was really, really, really special. And I got to be in the room for that. So when you volunteer with your local radio station, you have no idea where God is going to take you and who you're going to meet from there. I have a instruction sheet that I'm going to hand out in a little bit, that if you do want to volunteer with Life Songs, I'll take you to the website. You click on this tab and here's how you do it. If you're not able to physically show up and help out an event or answer the phones when they have their share-a-thon, financial support. A little bit goes a very long way. $5 a month, $10 a month, it really does help. And being consistent with your giving, we all know the principles of tithing. We know how the rewards come when you are obedient with your tithing. So actually, that was the first way I started out with Life Songs. This was financial support. And then I started volunteering with the event help and answering phones for Share-a-thon. Also, occasionally, because, I've gotten to know these people over the years and I love them like family. And even though technically we're doing the same thing on different stations, I'm an internet radio station and they're a terrestrial station, they're still some of my biggest supporters and encouragers and cheerleaders. And there's absolutely no competition there. So that's the kind of friend group that you're going to be building when you're showing up to work at events with life songs. Write them a thank you note and let them know, even if all you do is listen, let them know that what they do matters. Because, I know I've been there when they've gotten the thank you notes, when they've gotten the email about the right song at the right time. Those are the stories that us as Christian writers should be inspired by, because we know how supernatural our God is and how he shows up. But to get to hear about how each life has been touched, that's just the icing on the cake when it comes to ministry. So if you can't support them, if you can't show up, if you can't answer the phone, just write them a note and let them know that you're listening. Follow them on social media, send them a post and let them know, hey, that was an awesome song. I needed to hear it. I have a little thing. My personal theme song is Regina Bell, God is Good. Every single time I hear that song, I feel like they played it just for me. It feels like a hug. Even if I didn't request it, I feel like it's, a hug. And I always send them a text or a note and I say, thanks. Okay. Volunteer for Christian events. For those who are able, and you may think you're not able, but you'd be surprised because there's absolutely no manual labor involved with what I do. I have on this sheet that I'm going to hand out at the end, I have contact information for these production companies I'm going to talk about. My favorite personal production company is Loop Productions, Loop Events. They and Transparent Productions, they work exclusively with Christian artists. Yes.
L-O-U-P.
L-O-O-P. Mm-hmm. And I have on my handout that I'm going to hand you, it's contact information. If I run out of copies of the handout, you're going to email them in the next newsletter, correct? Yeah. In this handout, I have instructions on how to get on the volunteer list and how you get called back. You get called back by showing up. They need you to be reliable. If they say, we need you to be here at 4:30 for a 5 o'clock check-in, you better be there at 4:20. I'm serious. They keep notes. The production manager may change with every single show, but the people who are booking these events and the venues that you're working at do not change. Those are the people, the locals, those are the people who are going to remember you. And as the bigger names come, they're going to want you first. They're going to request you. Behaving. I know we are all professionals, but we're not famous. And sometimes we get around some of these famous people, even Christian influencers and Christian artists, and we get a little tongue-tied, a little starstruck. We want to get our picture. We want to get an autograph. That is very much frowned upon. If you do make it to the backstage areas or you are in a VIP room, the best way you can make a solid impression is to not ask for the picture or the autograph. Let them know you're a fan. That's awesome. That's great. They actually, it's really encouraging for them. But by hounding them and being that way, it's like a violation of the intimate space, right? Yeah. So, and it does get frowned upon. It won't mean that they won't call you back for another event or another show, but they may not put you in that special spot anymore. They may just have you, go work the merch table like I do. I love working merch table though. Okay. I am going to give you some media insider tips, and all of these things really, really worked well for me, not just in building my platform, but in building my network. It also gave me a lot of confidence when I'm ready to get to that next level and go out and do speaking events like I'm doing right now, which for me, I feel like this is the next level, is the speaking events. These are the tips and the tricks that helped me get to this point. I can't stress enough the value of local writers groups. This group in particular, I'm also a member of the Algiers Poetry Group, which is not meeting right now, but we're going to be getting back together very soon. And I'm a member of the Bywater Poets, which is a group that meets, was it the first Saturday of every month? Second Saturday of every month. And Ingrid or Ray could actually give you information on both of these groups. But my favorite group is this one right here. In this group, I met one of my really closest writer friends, Ingrid, and Mr. Ray. Mr. Ray, I consider like my editor person, so I will call him for my first look. But these two were my first two friends here, and they were influential in the encouragement side. So, and if you'll notice, they show up. You know, Mr. Ray, not so much anymore, but Ingrid all the time. And Tina had a guest very early on. Her name was Beth Townsend, and she is the creator of a TV show called Life on Purpose. And it was on PureFlix. I believe it's still available for streaming over there. And she is this best-selling author, and she was just this really fun, amazing lady. And she talked about this group called Christian Women in Media. And I had seen something about it on Facebook, but I thought, well, I'm a writer. At the time, all I had was the Twitter messages on, you know, the audio thing. I didn't even have the radio station yet, but I liked her. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to go check out this group. And every time, it's funny because Christian Women Media was amazing for me. Every single time I would go to one of their in-person meetings, they only meet every other month in person. And every time I would go to one of their meetings, right before the meeting, something big would happen in my life and give me something to talk about. Like September 2019, when I started on WIAM radio, I was not, that just came out of nowhere. And I had a meeting on Thursday and I got the call on Tuesday. And so I got to go into my very first meeting and say, well, I'm a writer and I'm just getting started, but I'm going to be doing this. And they were so encouraging. They really were. And they kept in touch. They reached out. And even though it was 2 months until the next meeting, by the next meeting, I had gotten the Alberta station in Alberta, Canada. So I had something to share and report. And it just went on like that. Every time we had an event or had something big would happen that would grow my confidence and remind me I do belong here, even if I haven't been published yet. So I know there are a few men in the group. The male version, if you will, would be NRB, National Religious Broadcasters. You can look them up online. Writers are welcome. Speakers are welcome. You do have to apply for membership. It's a lot better when you grow your platform a little bit and then apply, because then you can have people who can vouch for you, especially if they're a member of NRB already and they can speak up and give you a reference. That will help you out a lot more. If you're interested in Christian Women in Media, I have some brochures up here that Beth was kind enough to send to me, so that right now we're meeting in Baton Rouge. I'm not brave enough to start a New Orleans chapter. So if anybody else wants to, I'll connect you with Beth. And Destiny Yarbrough is the president of the Atlanta chapter. She's also on the board of Christian Mix. Like I said, these women have showed up for me every single time. The first interaction with them was at this meeting right here at Southern Christian Writers Guild. And then the next time was when I got to meet Sue Ellen in that Zoom that my friend Destiny invited me to. Again, these women are incredible and they have amazing careers, and every single thing that they do is ministry related. And they genuinely, what I love about Christian Women in Media is walking in, you're instantly among friends, instantly. And you're welcome, you're wanted, and they really do like you. You know, it's not like out there, you know, in the world where everything's a competition, and especially among women. So you think in media that this is going to be where it's going to be the most cutthroat. They're going to lift you up, and they're going to encourage you and they're going to show you opportunities you never even thought of. So if you're interested, The next meeting is in September. It's in Baton Rouge at Lighthouse Coffee. And the official meeting starts at noon, but we always get there early, about 10:30, 11, so we can get together and have coffee and visit and everything else. And we have a pretty large group now. So they come from all over the state. Lighthouse Coffee in Baton Rouge. And I have on that handout, I have the christianwomeninmedia.org. And then from there, you can click on your event. Again, we don't have a New Orleans chapter. So if anybody wants to start one, I will support you 100%, but I don't know if I can do that by myself. If you feel led.
Start a chapter and meet here.
Oh, really?
Yes.
All right.
Awesome.
I'm gonna write that down.
Okay. Now, see, now I'm feeling that whole blessings of obedience,
Yes.
you know? I'm going to pray about that. I really will. Because I know that there's a huge need here. I just don't know if I'm the person to lead it. So, but maybe God has somebody whose wheels are turning right now. So, the last thing that I want to share with you is the Inspirational Minutes Ministry. At this point, we have over a dozen writers who participate. And as a matter of fact, I've actually stepped back from this ministry because I want to have more people get involved and get their spot. And if I'm on air, then that's one less person who's going to be heard. So what I am looking for is 90 seconds to 2 minutes, a devotional type. Yes, if I'm going to give information for everybody to be able to submit. It's going to be a devotional type message. What we want is positive, uplifting. It's a Christian ministry, so we do want it based on a Bible verse. Some people go more along the lines of a like a series where they would have a theme, and then every single message that they produce is on that theme. I'm not looking for that right now. What I'm looking for is just devotionals, audio devotionals. They air randomly, sporadically, so I cannot give you an actual time. They just air in between songs and in between some of our longer messages. Most of the time, when people start off with inspirational minutes, they get the idea for a podcast with a theme. So I want to be encouraging is that, and with that as well, unfortunately, right now I have a very full schedule. So what I would do is, once you get the inspirational minutes going and you feel comfortable with that, expand to 5-minute messages, and then look at 15 and 28. Those are the time frames for the internet stations for what we're looking for. I know I'm looking at you, Ingrid. You know I am. That's what we're looking for as far as our time frames are concerned. So when we do have an opening in the 28-minute mark, we'll know that Ingrid's Inspirations is perfect for this slot. So that's what we would do. Right now, again, I have a full schedule. We are constantly, every 30 to 60 days, we're constantly taking a look at things, and we are switching it up. We very rarely remove people, but a lot of people like to take breaks. You know, we get burned out. It's a lot, you know, especially if you're doing 2 messages a week for a year and a half. It is a lot. If you're ever worried about running out of topic ideas, just go back to the Bible. I never ran out of ideas. As a matter of fact, I have a whole file of messages that I've never bothered to record that I may do an article on this, or maybe even a book later on down the road. I don't know. But what we're looking for as far as that is concerned, and we have the most flexibility, is the 90 seconds. On here, I talk about something called Spreaker, Spreaker. And it's the podcast that I use, the podcast app that I use. You can use it on the computer. You can use it on your phone. You don't have to invest in a fancy microphone. I started off on my phone, literally on a mobile app, and just talking into my phone. That's how I started. They have a free version. The free version is allows you, I think, 15 minutes tops to speak, and then the memory, the space, the storage space doesn't last very long. I actually do the $7.99 a month, I believe. And then there's another level above that. But I just do it so I can access and store all of them. I don't want to delete anything. I hate deleting stuff. I want it there forever in case my computer crashes. So I find the value in that. You don't have to pay for it and to be able to use it and still get me those messages. It's incredibly easy to use, and it literally walks you through how to record and then edit and then share it. So if you are interested in participating in the Inspirational Minutes Ministry, I have 2 business cards up here. One of them is mine, and it's the bigger stack. And the other one is Brian. Brian and I founded Christian Mix in August of 2020. The reason we founded the station was because we wanted to do something different. We were working with all these other platforms, and everybody had the same routine, even the internet ones. You know, they may have had a different genre or a different sound, but pretty much the same formula. And we wanted to do something different. And the reason why we call it the mix is because we have every single genre from the 90s till now, maybe a couple of 80 songs in there, but we want everybody to be welcome. So we'll play a little bit of R&B, we'll play a little bit of rap, we'll play some Christian country music, we'll play the top 40 stuff, you know, Christian artists. So, but everything that we play is clean. Every single song that's added to our playlist is listened to ahead of time. We don't just add people. We do have standards. Every single message that is submitted to either Brian or myself, there are people who listen to it and who make a decision on it. Very rarely have we ever said no. Very rarely. And the only times we've said no is because they could not commit to getting us messages in a timely manner. So that's another issue, is we do like to work ahead. So as you're preparing your messages, get us a minimum of 2 for a sample, and 4 is really great. And that way you have a little lean room. If something comes up in your schedule and you're not able to record that week or get a message out, we've got 2 messages in the hole that we can go pull, you know? So on that note, I am finished. I want to take a moment and thank everybody on Zoom, and please do check your emails, because we're going to send out this handout that you're not here. We're going to send this out to you. It's going to be the brand building resources and then the outline page. Probably don't need the outline at this point. Would you mind handing that out?
If they're not enough.
Does anybody have any questions before I go?
Yes, I want to make this comment. And I love your enthusiasm and that you're just being you. And that speaks to me, because it's like, it's just a natural thing that God has placed on the inside of you. And I just thank you that you are here today.
Well,
it's bringing tears to my eyes to know that it's possible.
It's easy when I'm among friends. You know, honestly, if my first real big time getting this presentation was at one of those conferences, I probably would have been panicked. But I am literally, these are the people that helped me when I was whispering. So
I really appreciate that, because I pray always that the people who come here would find what they need. You know?
and it's definitely, you're doing something great here. You really are. Plus, we have access to an editor. We have several editors in the group. I was like, okay, well, guess what? I'm going to totally take her up on it. And I have.
Yep, she did.
One, William?
The question I have is that you mentioned that you were on Twitter.
Uh-huh.
I always look at Twitter as like a dynamite kind of situation or landmine kind of situation. How do you handle, I mean, you can say the sky is blue and you're going to have negative detractors from it.
Yeah.
How do you deal with the negative detractors on Twitter?
When I get triggered, I stick to the scripture. I stick to the Bible. When they trigger me on hot button issues, I try not to talk about hot button issues. It's really hard not to right now. When I get triggered or somebody makes a comment, one of my biggest bullies on Twitter turned into a good friend. They were vicious. And I was in the middle of a storm that particular day. And I didn't have time for the attack. And every time I went to tell this person off, God kept telling me that they're not attacking me, that they're angry at something else. And I just kept responding with love. And no matter what was thrown at me, that's what I said. And it worked. And it wasn't, the fleshy part of me. I really wanted to just go off. I did. But I had made this commitment that this platform, in particular Twitter, is not about me. It's not about my accomplishments. It's to God be the glory. Literally, to God be the glory. That's my hashtag, my phrase. Yes, sir.
Facebook has these analogs that plus to so you may have 1,000 followers, but you're only, when you post something, it only reaches
25.
sometimes less than 100 of them. How do you get around that, or how do you face that?
Post it anyway.
Yeah.
Trust that God is going to bring people to your page, because they will. It may not show up in the main newsfeed scroll, but when you meet an editor, an acquisitions editor for a publisher, which actually happened to me, and they go to your Facebook page and they start looking, they're going to look at your post and they go back. And Rosemary will tell you, they do the deep research. They go back as far as they possibly can and look at your posts. They really do. And I had a publisher say to me, because you can see the moment in my Facebook timeline, you can see the moment I became a Christian. I can look back. And they said, why don't you delete those old posts? And I said, because I want to show everyone what grace has done in me, because I am still a work in progress and I am still trapped in my flesh. I still struggle with the same things everybody else struggles with. I get triggered, but grace has made a change in me, and you can see it in my history on Facebook. So I would post it anyway, and I would trust that the people who need to see it are going to see it.
Okay, so you have the public Facebook, and then you have.
I do not have a
author-
public
An
Facebook.
author page?
I just have my own page that I started when I was a nothing. Yep. When I had
You
a,
don't have a author's page?
Nope. I do not.
Do you post on group Facebook?
I do not.
That's right.
No. I do not. I do participate in groups and I do encourage others. So everybody that is an author, I like all the author pages. When I get an invite, I like them all. Why? Because when I have my own author page for my book, they're going to come and like mine too, because they know that you liked theirs. So you have a question?
With Facebook, they have the reels now. Are you on the reels, or do you, is it, no?
I am not on the reels. I am not, and I don't do messages, live messages, the video messages. I don't do those. That is just something that I get intimidated by. I don't feel as confident. I worry more about what do I look like and what am I going to say? And then I'll watch it back and I'll critique myself. I don't need to do that.
Is it a good thing if you do it, or a bad thing, or should you not do it? I do a lot of it, that's why.
Well,
Fair question. If you know me, I do a lot.
that depends on you. Do you see a response
Yeah.
from your audience?
Yeah.
Keep doing it.
Even if, like, I started and I started getting a lot of followers, and then something, and I stopped, it seems like I stopped the real content and started doing something else. Should I consistently do the same thing, or not the same content? Because it's all Christian based,
Right.
But I find myself, like, I started the reels and it was getting really picked up, and then I kind of fell off the reels because I felt like I wasn't moving enough.
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
I would really, honestly, it's what you want. Consistency on social media works. When it comes to Facebook, I have not been active on Facebook in all of 2022. So but I still have I get the notifications in my email, constant friend requests and everything else. So I know it's still going.
Right.
If the reels are working for you, I would not only continue them, but I would add in the new stuff that you're doing in addition to, if it's not too much for your schedule.
And Twitter too?
Yes.
So Twitter is a must.
Twitter, yeah, honestly, Twitter is the best place if you're really wanting to go for the ministry side of things and you want to reach people. That's really the best platform to reach people, especially non-believers or the on the fence believers. Yes, ma'am.
How do you protect yourself and your family from stalking or misappropriation of what your message is, you know?
Yes.
Kind of separate what you do professionally from personally.
I have not found a way to separate my personal from my professional. And I think that might be a God thing. I think that he wants people to see the work that he's doing in me. And in a lot of ways that I do get intimidated on Facebook by sharing some of my personal things, especially with my children. They're now teens and they have voices and they'll tell me I'm not comfortable with you posting that or sharing that. And, you know, I do take that into consideration, but it's because I have such a large following over there now. It's 3,000. I have no idea really, honestly, how many it is. I know that it's well above 2,500. And I don't know. I know 200 people in real life, and either because I've met them and I'm friends with them in person or I'm related to them. So I don't feel comfortable sharing my personal stuff. When it comes to Twitter, I knew that was going to be public and open and I wasn't going to lock it down. So everything over there, there's nothing personal, all Jesus. It's not even professional. It's all Jesus. So I would decide what you want. If, you know, I hate to say it this way, but if you passed away and all anybody ever has is to go back and look at your timeline, what do you want that to say about you? And the first thing I want people to say is she loved the Lord. So, yes, Miss Ingrid.
Okay. I just wanted to piggyback on the comment about being on Facebook. I just bumped into Facebook. You know, I mean, I was on it personally, but then just one day, I just decided with the pandemic or whatever, why we just hit this little button right here? Because I had a lot of things to say and we were closed inside and we couldn't, you know, we couldn't get out at that time. So I started it and then I stopped. And then I had people contacting me saying, what happened to you? Why are you not doing that? I was like, well, I did this for a while. People look like we're going to be in this pandemic for even longer. It's not going to go away. So, you know, I was backed by popular demand because people wanted me to do that. The thing I wanted to say to you, Michelle, is that I felt comfortable with it and I'm still with it because that's what God gave me to do. After that, I was like, well, I want to stop this now. But it was like, he keeps giving me these things to do. And I do the Ingrid's Inspiration. And I have several pages that, you know, you can look at, other groups I share with groups and it's because I feel comfortable with that. And I'll be in a store or whatever, and somebody will say, keep doing that. I see that on Tuesdays. I like that. You know, it's people I just would never know that I would touch. And then I get these people that, you know, request to be a friend or whatever, because, you know, I like what you're saying. Please, I want to be your friend, you know, stuff like this. And so whatever you're doing, find something that works for you, if it's consistent and you know that this is what God has given you to do. I would say it's just my opinion to, you know, to keep doing that and to share, because you never know who it's touching, you know, who you're reaching, you know. I have the other mediums, and I think maybe I should start looking a little bit more to Twitter. I put one or two things there, and Instagram. So, you know, there's some other social media outlets that I'll have to explore. But for me right now, the Facebook thing happens to be going well.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question, because I used to have a bunch of different accounts. And to me, it was kind of like all the same people on all the same accounts. So why am I doing all this extra work?
I got a great tip on that one too. And it is going to be extra work because it is all the same people. It is. And they're going to go following this and post something different on each platform. So what I would post on Facebook would not be the same thing I would share to Twitter. Everybody does that. It gets old. It really does. Okay, I've already seen your Instagram picture 5 times and I'm not on Instagram.
Yeah.
So don't do it. Don't do the same thing.
Right.
You know, even though they're the same followers, treat them as if they're unique and different and give them something unique and different. And that's going to grow new people.
Yeah.
So
the ratio, what I've read, are you promoting publications, or are you cross promoting into your broadcasts?
well, Right now, I've been published as a poet. I'm an award-winning poet and writer. I have one for my fiction. I have not been published in fiction. I'm working on that. I do have a lot of interest from publishers who have reached out personally to ask me to submit to them. And that is very unique for somebody who has not been published. I've also had some articles published, and when people say, hey, would you be a guest blog post? Would you do a guest blog post? I say yes every single time, because even though I don't have a blog, I will write for somebody else and do that. And again, a lot of this is unpaid. It's ministry. You've got to be prepared for that, because eventually you will get paid for your work, but they want you to have a platform. They want you to have an audience to sell to before you can start earning that money. So I would, do the investment, invest in yourself. Time, it doesn't cost you anything, but time. That's really what it takes to get going. So.
Any other questions?
I have a question. Have anybody out of the country ever got in touch with you?
All the time.
Yeah. We've
Because
got some people in Africa that follow us.
I'm also dealing with with Facebook and everything myself, and it's like I'm dealing with some people with in Asia and all.
Yep, you're gonna have a lot of that. You know why? There's a huge revival going on overseas, and one of the things that we notice, I don't talk about necessarily station numbers. I mean, we could do that if you wanted to, but out of the 50 to 55 countries we consistently reach, a lot of them are Muslim countries. They're places that are closed to the gospel. You are going to have your scammers. It's the number one way to scam those rich Americans is to get on social media and give them a sob story and string them along. But what I had, for a lot of ways, it's pretty easy because they're going to ask for money within the first few messages. When I go back to responding to those messages, block them, use the block features. But you're also going to meet the people. Like I had a friend in Pakistan who was a minister in Pakistan, and he lived way up in the rural areas in the flood. I did donate to his ministry after they had a flooding event take out their village, and he went from pastoring a community church to being literally homeless. That's a different situation. But I had gotten to know this person through social media. I have friends in Singapore. I have friends in China. A lot of the Chinese Christians, they really want you to pray for them. They really do. So don't be automatically assumed that just because this person, they look like they're from whatever country and they're not friendly to Christians, you don't know the work that God is doing in that country. And that person may actually be a legitimate person. You're going to have to respond to find that out.
Okay, Jenna had her hand up, and then Charles, and then I've got a couple of things to say. We're going to have to close. Go ahead.
I just wanted to mention, I post once a week a devotion, as Tina knows. And I've had several people from out of our country, and I haven't learned how to respond to them yet, but that's my goal for this year. But yeah, you never know, because they'll put in like the word joy. They'll see my devotion. So it's a good thing.
Yep. The internet is worldwide, for sure.
And then Charles had his hand up.
I've got a friend of mine on Facebook in Lahore, Pakistan, which is the largest Christian community in Pakistan. And I've gotten to know her and her husband and her family very well. And there are bomb attacks and all sorts of stuff on the Christians. Populace.
Talk about persecution.
And because of this one little group, I mean, they've got an orphanage that they sponsor. They've got a school that they sponsor. I've got half a dozen other Pakistani Christian friends.